The baby was a day old. My hands did not know what to do with him. That was the first thing I learned about being a father. The hands a man has carried his whole life cannot hold a newborn without becoming new themselves. They had to be taught by weight, by the breath of him, by the way his head was the softest thing my body had ever been near. Mara slept. I had thought a woman would sleep deeper than the dead after a birth. Mara slept like a soldier between watches. One eye on the room, both eyes on the child, even with both eyes closed. The lamp guttered. I trimmed it without thinking. The child made a sound that was not yet language, only an opinion. I held him at the elbow of one arm because that was what Mara had shown me and because my other hand still wanted to do violence to anything that came near him, including the wall, including the door, including my own past. "Hello," I said. He did not answer. That was reasonable. I had nothing useful to tell him. The road outside our small house belonged to traders, dust, and the occasional Roman patrol that took more interest in the wine villages south than in our scrub. We were not safe. No one was safe. But we were unimportant in the right ways for a while, and that was a kind of safety Rome had not yet learned to refuse a man. The mustard had not yet flowered, though its green spikes stood where we'd sown the seeds when Mara's belly first quickened. Soon, Mara stirred. "You did not sleep," she said. I held him. Both at once is possible. I was afraid of dropping him by accident. You will drop him eventually. Babies are dropped. Try not to make a habit of it. She held out her arms. I gave him over. She fed him without taking her eyes from my face. "What did you tell him?" "Oh," she asked. "Hello, and?" He did not say anything back. Diplomatic. He will be a politician. He will be a farmer's son. We will protect him from worse fates. The room was small, the work in it was small, the joy was a cup of milk, a held breath, nothing more, and I had finally learned what scale to live at. I had been wrong about scale my whole life. I had thought scale meant Rome. It meant a milk-warm room, a baby's mouth, a wife's eyes, and one knife I no longer needed to keep near the door. Then someone tapped at the door anyway. I had the knife in my hand before the tap was finished. That too was reasonable. "Dagon," Mara said, "I have not forgotten the world is loud. Open the door. You know who it is." I sent word. "To whom?" "Open the door." I opened it. Mary stood in the dust outside. She had walked. The hem of her dress said so. Sandals worn at the strap. Hair tied back with a kind of efficiency only women who have buried someone they loved seem to learn. There was a satchel over her shoulder and the small caution in her eyes of a woman who had used both her name and someone else's to get this far. "You came," I said. "I said I would. To Mara. To both." I stepped back from the door so the room could be bigger than my body. Mary crossed the threshold the way some people cross thresholds, with the awareness that thresholds matter. She looked at the baby first, then at Mara, then at me, and her face did the small thing she did instead of smiling, which was to soften without performing softness. "He is small," Mary said. "He is correctly sized," Mara said. "I meant in the way of new things." "Then so am I." Mary set down her satchel. From inside she drew bread, oil, salt, a cloth, and something wrapped in a smaller cloth she did not yet unwrap. "You walked the whole way?" I asked. "With a cart for the last hill. The driver thought I was a widow returning to family." "Were you?" "In a way." She would not say more about that. I did not press. There were rooms in Mary I had never been invited into and would not knock on. She unwrapped the smaller cloth. It was a small carved bird. Wood dark with age, with one wing slightly worn smooth where a thumb had rubbed it without thinking, the way grief rubs an object until it becomes part of the body. "Yours?" Mara asked. "His mother's," Mary said. The room moved a little. Mara did not gasp. Mara did not weep. Mara simply received the bird with both hands and placed it on the small ledge by the lamp where light would touch one wing and shadow the other. "She wanted the child to have it," Mary said. She said birds outlived the trees they nested in. She said she had carried it since her son was small. I sat down because my knees had taken instructions from somewhere other than my mind. "She is well?" Mara asked. "As well as a mother who has buried a son and still wakes to feed the others. That is well enough for any of us, then?" "It is." Mary looked at me. "You should name him soon," she said. "We have a name." "Have you said it?" "Not aloud." "Then it is not a name yet, it is an intention." I looked at Mara. She nodded. I had thought I would argue. I had practiced the argument for the long weeks Mara had carried him. I had walked rows of unbroken soil and rehearsed my reasons. Names were dangerous. Names tied a child to expectation. Names taught Rome where to look. The road had taught me that to name a thing was to put a handle on it that any passing hand could grip. I had argued in my head and lost every argument, then woken before dawn and known I was going to lose this one out loud. "Eliezer," I said. The baby did not look up. Babies do not perform for naming ceremonies. He continued his very serious work of being 1 day old. "Eliezer," Mary repeated. "God has helped. Mara chose it." "I chose it together with someone," Mara said. "Together with whom?" Mary asked, but she was smiling the soft thing now, and she knew. Mara did not answer. She did not have to. The lamp held its small column of fire. The bird waited on the ledge. The child made his small sound again. Outside, the mustard was not yet flowering, but the air had begun to carry a hint of the field that was coming. I almost argued. Then I heard my friend's voice in the small room of my memory. Love is true, and faith in love is the truest faith, so I said nothing. Some names arrive already stronger than fear. She did not leave that night. Mary stayed 3 days. In those 3 days, I learned that 2 women who have each carried a man through worse than dying can do an entire household between them without raising their voices. I cooked once. I was politely thanked and not asked again. I drew water. I held the child. I mended a fence Mara had been waiting for me to mend since the rains. Word came on the second morning from my sister. She had heard. She had a way of hearing and could not come. Her own youngest was running a fever and the road from her town was long. She sent oil. She sent a folded cloth she had stitched the year before, when Mara's belly had first quickened, because my sister had always known things before they were told to her. She had been 6 when she learned to read silence on a road, and she had never unlearned it. I read her note twice and put it on the small ledge near the bird. Mara did not ask. Mara had seen the handwriting. Mara had her own kind of knowing. On the second night, after Eliezer had been fed and Mara had stepped outside to bury a small pile of soiled cloths beyond the door, Mary sat with me by the lamp. "You are afraid," she said. "I have always been afraid. This is a new flavor. You are observant. It is not difficult. You look at the door more than you look at him." I looked at the door, then at him, then back at the door. "He will be small for a long time," I said. "They are, then they are not." What did she tell you, his mother, about fear? Mary thought about it. She said the first time she put him down to sleep alone in a separate room, she did not sleep for 2 nights. She said the 3rd night she slept because she had no choice, that you do not stop being afraid. You only learn that fear is not the same shape as care, and one of them must do the lifting most days. It is not fear. Care, that is harder than fear. That is why fear is so popular. I almost laughed. Mary, yes. Why the bird? She looked at the bird because she asked me to. And because she is the kind of mother who knows that a story without a small object to hold becomes a sermon, and her son did not like sermons. I considered the bird. He liked things, I said. He liked things, he liked people, he liked a question he could turn over in his hand. He did not like men who used long words to make themselves taller. He used some long words. He used them sparingly. He had earned them. Most of us have not. You used to be one of the ones with the long words. I used to be a lot of things. He kept the ones worth keeping. The rest he let me put down. The lamp guttered. I reached to trim it. So did Mary. Our hands almost touched and did not. "You are going somewhere when you leave," I said. Not back, not back. Where? Where I am needed. That is everywhere. It is mostly somewhere. You will come back. When the child can name me, I will come back to be named. He will name you Mary. He will name me something. Children name people the way they need them. You will see. She bent over Eliezer. She did not kiss him on the forehead, which surprised me because I had always thought women kissed babies on the forehead. She kissed her own thumb and pressed it lightly to the small space between his eyes. "Beloved," she said, "beloved enough to bear the rest." She left on the 3rd morning. Mara stood in the doorway with the baby on her hip and watched her go. "You will be all right," Mara said. "I am holding the door for a child a day old. I will be all right by the time he can walk." I was talking to her. "I know, and to you." "I know." I closed the door. The room held what it held. Lamp, bird, child, wife. The small carved wing that had outlived a son and now waited for a son to grow into the kind of hand that could rub it smooth in a different place. That night the wind came down off the scrub and into the field, and the mustard stalks made the small sound stalks make when a wind they trust passes through them. I lay beside Mara. She was already half asleep. "He has my hands," I said. "He has his own hands. They only resemble yours." "That is what I meant." "I know it is." The lamp burned low. I let it. I did not need to see the room. I could feel it. The miracle had not been the wine or the bread or the empty cloth or the breath returning to a body in a tomb. The miracle had been that any of it traveled, that a carved bird could survive a sun. I slept. The field slept. The bird slept on its ledge. The child did not sleep